Hey everyone, I'm Matt. I know it's been a while since stuff happening, but something really weird happened, and don't know for sure if it was this, but my mom and I were out shopping, and I'm pretty sure for like a split few minutes, I had a spirit attachment. It wasn't violent or anything like that, but it felt weird. Like, it got to the point where I had to keep praying until the attachment was gone. And I knew it was because even my mom said it kept following me. And it was making her cough, which was weird because, yes, we were in a store, but at first I thought it was somebody wearing a ton of perfume. But clearly it wasn't. And I've never felt anything like that before. That was weird. But with everything that's been happening, that was probably one of the only weird things this week. And I really hope I do not feel that again because I didn't like it. Like I said, it wasn't evil or mean or anything like that. I just didn't like it. But again, with that being said, let's start the video. Fort Worden Historical State Park is located in Port Townsend, Washington, on 433 acres. In 175 hectares, originally known as Fort Worden and the United States Army Coast Artillery Corps, began construction to protect the Puget Sound from invasion by sea. Fort Worden was also named after the U.S. Navy Rear Admiral John Lorimer Morton, commander of the USS Monitor during the famous Battle of Hampton Roads during the American Civil War. Constructed between 1898 and 1920, Fort Worden was one of the largest Endicott period forts to be built, a rare example of a post built according to the precepts of Endicott Board and not already occupied by an existing fortification. It is located within the site of the potential enemy fortification, a British Royal Navy installation on the Vancouver Island in Canada. So it has to be pretty big to be in part of Washington State and Canada. Like, I would have seen this in person. I've seen pictures of it, and from the pictures it's huge, but I do know that the pictures probably do not do it justice. Like, there are some things that you have to see in person, and I believe this fort, if you're allowed to go on it, is one of them. And since it's a military fort, it's probably not going to happen. The fort was designed by a National Historic Landmark in 1976. Fort Worden was an active United States Army base from 1902 to 1953. Most of it purchased by the port of Port Townsend in 1956 and sold to the state of Washington in 1957 to house a juvenile detention facility. The port retained ownership of the base from the entrance of the port of the fort to approximately the pier. In 1971, used as transfer to the Washington State Parks and Recreation Commission in Fort Worden State Park, was opened in 1973. In the 1890s, admirably elect was considered the strongest advance of Puget Sound in that the three forts, Fort Worden, Fort Flagler, and Fort Casey, were built at the entrance with their powerful artillery creating a triangle of fire to thwart any invasion attempt by sea. Fort Worden on the premier peninsula at the extreme northeastern tip of the Olympic Peninsula, set on the bluff near Port Townsend. Anchoring the northwest side of the triangle, the three posts were designed to prevent hostile fleet from reaching such triangle. The three posts were designed to fleet reaching such triangles as the Puget Sound Naval Shipyard at the cities of Seattle. Tomahawk and Everett. The force never fired a hostile shot, and many of the guns were removed during World War I. For the use in Europe, all remaining now-assault guns were scrapped during World War II. Subsequently, Fort Worden was used for training a variety of military personnel and for other defense purposes. The oldest building on the post is Alexander's Castle, a brick resident building built in 1883 by Reverend John Burrow Alexander, which predates the military presence. A British citizen, Alexander was the rector of St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Port Townsend from 1882 to 1886. Now we have a St. Paul's Episcopal. I'm butchering that word, and I apologize if it sounds like I'm saying Espanol, and I know that's not how it's pronounced, but well, and then we have one not far from where I live, and it is said to actually be haunted. And it's actually on a haunted ghost bus tour. And I'm like, I wonder if they will let me record and film. I mean, I still have to get permission from the church, but I wonder if they'll let me post it too. I mean, that would be awesome. Looks like I have to go do some asking. As well as Queen Victoria's British Vice Consul in Port Townsend and Toluca from 1884 to 1897. The building was acquired by the government in 1897. The construction of Fort Worden began in 1897, continuing in what in the form of another until the base was closed in 1953. Designed as a part of a massive modernization program of U.S. Seacoast fortifications initiated by the Endicott Board, construction work on the initial fortification above Point Wilson were delayed until July of 1897. The property was privately owned, and the government had to clear title to the land through the condemnation proceedings. Army and Force and engineers took charge of building the construction dock, warehouse, and farm to haul concrete for the gun emplacements from the dock mixing plants. I need to not stop in the middle of sentences. A cement for the batteries was imported from Belgium, shipped to Cape Horn, unloaded at Point Wilson. To meet the construction needs, the Army laid a pipeline from Port Townsend and pumped water into the stone tanks inside the fort. The arrival of a wet winter weather slowed progress on the batteries. It took 200 men almost 3 years to complete the excavation and concrete for the gun emplacements. In March of 1900, the year itself, the fortifications were ready for installation of the initial armaments. 16 artillery pieces shipped from an armory Columbus, Ohio, arrived from Tonopah by barge. A special tramway was constructed to haul the heavy artillery pieces from the dock area and to the top of the bluff. In March of 1901, the guns were moved to their assigned positions and mounted on the batteries, ready for test fire. Fort Worden was active in 1902. The 12th to 126th Horse Artillery Company, consisting of 887 soldiers, commanded by Captain Manus McCloskey, was the first detachment assigned to Fort Worden. They arrived from Seattle on the board of the steamer SS Majestic on May 3, 1902, and were quartered in tents pending the completion of company barracks. 23 apartment buildings were under construction at the cost of $559,450. A communication system connecting 3 forts by armed cable was installed in 1903. On September 4th, 1904, the headquarters of the Harbor Defense Command of Artillery Band, the headquarters of the Harbor Defense Command of Puget Sound was transferred to the Fort Flagler to Fort Worden along the 6th Artillery Band. Once work on the main batteries and Army force had been completed, more troops were assigned in there. By the fall of 1905, the Worden was fully staffed with the Coast Artillery companies, and the Harbor Defense System, costing approximately $7.5 million, was considered complete and operational. The initial armaments consisted of 6 gun emplacements: Battery Randall, Corners, Axe, Hallwell, Brandon, and Vice Guards. Between 1905 and 1910, 6 additional gun emplacements were added: Battery Menson, Toulouse, Walker, Stormard, Stoddard, Putnam, and Kinsey. When completed, Fort Worden had 41 artillery pieces completing its point in the triangle of fire. 2 12-inch disappearing guns, 2 12-inch barmate guns, and 2 10-inch disappearing guns, 5 10-inch bar mount guns, 8 6-inch disappearing guns, 2 5-inch balanced pillar guns, and 4 3-inch pedestal guns, and 1612 mortars. During World War I, the company at Fort Worden was expanded as soldiers arriving in the training prior to the beginning of the European battlefields. To keep up with the demand, construction of new barracks and buildings continued throughout the war. 36 of 41 artillery pieces were dismantled and sent to arsenals to be retrofitted for uses on the European battlefields. Many were never replayed. The 400-acre Fort Worden State Park was opened in August of 1873. Today, the 2 miles of sandy beaches and high bluffs attract residents from around the region to the multi-use recreation facility. The extensive system of large abandoned artillery batteries are above for exploration. The state park includes the Puget Sound Coast Artillery Museum, a balloon hangar which was used for observation balloons, and 3-inch anti-aircraft gun emplacements. No guns remain. A several restored quarters of officers NCO row available for vacation rentals. The Point Wilson Lighthouse is also located here. The commanding officers' quarters on Officers Row has been restored to reflect the early 20th century Victorian period and is open in the summer for tours. The park is the home of the Port Townsend School of Woodworking and Fine Woodworking School founded by Jim Toplin, Ron Markworth, and Tim Lawson. The independent publisher of poetry, Cooper Canyon Press, located permanently at Fort Worden in 1974. The park is also home to the Port Townsend Marine Science Center, whose Natural Historic Museum, hands-on tide pools, exhibits, and educational programs promote understanding of our coastal ecosystems. I'm in science class, I should know that word. The 1982 film An Officer and a Gentleman was shot at Fort Worden, as well as the 2002 film The Ring. As in the horror movie The Ring? I need to look that part up. Lord Holland's Port Port Townsend campus hosts several of its programs resisting Fort Worden in the former base hospital building. A notable feature of the park is the 200 million gallon underground stations, only built to hold water for firefighting and the event of the fort was attacked and put to the torch. The furnace was drained in the 1950s when Fort was decommissioned, leaving an underground space for more than 200 feet in diameter and 14 feet deep. So we ought to play hiding and seek in there, and none of us will be found. The huge subterranean chamber has associated the reformation time of around 45 seconds. The once attracted the entrance of various musicians, recording artists, among the Wayne Harvest, Pauline Oliver, and Stuart Dempster. As of 2014, the Surgeon is sealed, cut and closed to the public access. A small military cemetery maintained by the Public Works decorated at the Point Base Lewis Works. It's located at the south side of the state park. Fort Worden in Fort St. Washington is considered one of the state's most haunted locations. Featuring eerie bunkers, a historic morgue, a report of phantom paranormal activity buildings like the Alexander Castle. Visitors have reported shadowy figures, phantom sounds, and incidents such as unexplained water puddles and faucets turning on by themselves. In the Alexander Castle, built in the late 19th century, the structure is reportedly haunted by spirits, with the guests experiencing phantom water, including faucets turning on and off by themselves. The bunkers and artillery hill. Artillery is a Pokemon. The dark, abandoned gun bunkers are hotspots for creepy encounters, including, can't find my notes here, intense heavy energy. A man's body was allegedly undiscovered for months at Artillery Hill, adding to the site of the site's grim history. The old morgue is considered the creepiest spot on the fort. I mean, people who died were there, so yeah. I think morgues everywhere are creepy. No offense to the people who work there. The original morgue still contains a cemetery machine. Paranormal activity reports range from phantom voices to mysterious figures walking near the old theater. And when I was looking up, I found this urban legend. Rumors have circulated around the potential satanic rituals and activity in the bunkers during the 1980s and 90s, with reports of symbols such as a pentagram being found. Fort Worden operates as a historical park, allowing visitors to explore these supposedly haunted areas. Now, Fort Worden, I did skip a lot of information because I wrote it down while printing it out, but I'm pretty sure it would have taken a 3-hour video if I didn't cut it. But probably not that extremely long, but yeah. But, I would like to see it. And if there is actually a pentagram there, not sure. But, and as I say that, I have Scream on my shirt. Well, those fates. But, I would like to see it. And I've read something about the pentagram. If the fifth point of the star is pointing up, you're worshiping God, and yeah. If the fifth star point is pointing down, then we all know when that goes. But, I've been talking for 25 minutes. Anyway, thank you guys for watching my channel and videos. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, I am Haunting Girl, and this is my channel. The paranormal is my playground. And until next time, pleasant dreams.